You know it's a random program, but yet we do our random testing on the first Monday of every month, the last Friday of every month. More than likely, the users may start drinking a whole lot of water to try to flush all that out of their body. Well, the creatinine level is dramatically different than what probably all of ours is right now. So that's the one thing that kind of triggers it, and then they can test for some of those drinks and the additives that are in those drinks. And some of those drinks, somebody could take an hour prior to test. It says, take an hour prior to test, fill it back up 2 times with water, you drink it, use the restroom 2 times before you go to that clinic. And then if you do test positive, then we're going to double, triple money back guarantee. So there's a lot of things on the market for that, but drug testing has gotten so good that they can't detect a lot of these things on the market. Okay?
Jason, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
It may actually be more for you, Betsy, than Jason, but we operate a work site where we have our guests performing services for us within the facility. If they have an accident, and we typically test them in-house, but if they have an accident while they're performing a task, say in the kitchen, do we send them for a drug test?
No.
No? Okay.
If you want to first think about our obligation is to protect KARM. The reason we have insurance, the reason we have this program is to protect KARM. And don't hear this the wrong way, it's not to protect our guests, it's to protect KARM. So technically, in that case, we do not go send them for a test.
You talking about like a work comp accident?
No, he's talking
I'm
about
actually
one of
talking
our
about, yeah,
a homeless guest.
And where I'm going in my thought process is a guest is here. They're doing something for us in the, I'm not going to do this, in the kitchen. They cut a finger off. We don't drug test them or anything. 6 months later, they sue us because they lost a finger. We can't prove that they were at fault for the accident.
Well, and we won't suffer liability for that if we've used reasonable response with first aid. And
okay.
Call 911, just like somebody slips in the shower
Right.
and say, I hit my head, I'm hurt, you call 911, right?
Mm-hmm. We did.
Same kind of thing. Now, it raises the question of whether at some point we want to say that for safety-sensitive areas, which could include kitchen, it could also include dealing with chemicals, by the way, which a far larger number of our guests are around. Should we permit them in those areas, although the kitchen might be higher because it's health department inspected, should we even permit them working in there if they're not clean? Different kind of conversation.
Okay.
But it does fall outside this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has that happened?
Somebody suing us for something like that, I have no idea, but I do know that we've had some guests that reported accidents while they were doing something for us, an assignment for us. So.
Yeah, we're just, we're just required to take care of our employees in a situation like that. I guess we got to render aid if an employee so chooses.
Of course.
Okay. So we're required to test for a lot. In regards to our 10 panel, what do you think the #1 drug is that that I see positive? If you didn't just see it back there. Would you agree with that? You bet. It's the #1. It's been the #1 for years, and it's became even greater now because of the legalization for recreational use of marijuana. And as Mark said when I came in, he was at Bonnaroo a few weeks ago, and he had some visibility to that as well. So THC stays in fat cells. That's actually what we test for, and what they call it, tetrahydrocannabinol. Sorry, I can't even pronounce it, but that's what we test for. And the reason why I think that we see it more than other drugs is because it's been around for a while. It stays in your system longer than any drug that we test for. Some people may still see it socially acceptable. And I guess they do because we've got right now 5 areas in the United States that has legalized it for recreational use. Colorado and Washington were the first 2 states to legalize it. It's already the #1 cash crop in those 2 states. Those 2 states generate between $17 and $25 million a month in tax revenue. The other three areas that came on board was Oregon, Alaska, and Washington, D.C. It's the closest to us, obviously. The other 2 states came on board. They voted upon it in November. December, it hit the streets. D.C. was kind of on hold until Congress passed the bill. They passed that bill, I believe, in March. So now, if you want to go to Washington, D.C., they've got dispensaries, is what they call these stores. It is a business, and you can go in there and you can purchase marijuana. You don't have to be a resident of Washington, D.C., Colorado, any of these. We could go over there right now into Colorado and buy it right out of one of these dispensaries. We would be paying a significant tax on it. I think an out-of-state resident in the state of Colorado right now is paying 39% tax on marijuana. So if you went and bought $100 worth of marijuana, you're going to pay $139 for it. If you're a state resident, I think it's about 30%. So you'd be paying $30 on 100. And if you have a medicinal card, they get a little bit more of a break at 15% taxation. So you can imagine how much tax dollars we are having generated in regards to this one drug. You think that's motivating other states to try to legalize?
Yeah.
You bet. You can see a lot of these other ones that are already in discussions of it. I was kind of naive thinking that we would. I've told you guys for years, I think the Southeast is going to be one of the last areas to legalize marijuana. But we've done a few other things that have kind of surprised me and some other folk as well that we'll talk about in a minute.
Hey, Jason, is
Yes,
that a
sir.
luxury or an entertainment tax?
I don't know how they do it. You know, Tennessee would call it an addict tax, I think. I think that's what we're calling tobacco, nicotine, alcohol is an addict tax, and it's a little bit higher. That's a good point then. But you can see a lot of these states that have, 1, legalized it, but 2, decriminalized it. The closest one you can see to us is North Carolina. Talked about this last year as well. If you get pulled over speeding, they search your car and you've got less than 2 ounces of marijuana in the state of North Carolina, they're going to give you a $50 citation. They'll let you keep your marijuana and let you go on about your day. That's what decriminalizing means. It doesn't mean it's legal. It just means that it's a lot easier for them to police it that way. And then there were some statistics that came out that said 17% of all jails have got misdemeanor marijuana charges in it. And we've got all these tax dollars taking care of these criminals for misdemeanor marijuana charges. So that's why they're also decriminalizing. 1, they're wanting to legalize it to make money, I guess, to generate money, and now they're wanting to pull the marijuana users out of jail to save money. So that's why a lot of these states are decriminalizing it. Okay? Does that make sense? So in a lot of states, that's the way that they're going. That's the way that it usually starts is, I'll jump to it in a minute. This is what it looks like. Mark saw it last week. It's gotten better. There's actually said that in the 70s, the THC content was between 3 to 5% in marijuana. Now the way that people make it, grow it, we're between 30 and 35% THC in marijuana. So they say now it's so much more potent than it was back in the 70s and 80s and 90s because it's grown a lot better. They cultivate it a little bit differently. So this is what it looks like. People get creative on the way that they smoke it. You've seen some of these pictures. These are just some joints. Some people put what they call little, I don't necessarily think that would be a filter, but my understanding is they put those little things on the end so they can grab it and smoke it so it doesn't burn their fingers. You can see my little state of Tennessee right here. You can see creative ways of banana, lipstick, looks like a toilet paper roll. You can see a gas mask. You can even see where they build Legos to make some pipes. You've seen the vaporizers. These things can get expensive. This is supposed to be your healthier alternative ways of smoking marijuana. Somebody told me this one can go up to $500, blows up into that balloon. Somebody could be smoking a vaporizer in here right now, and you might be able to smell it just by the marijuana being burnt inside one of those chambers or apparatuses. But when somebody exhales, you're just going to see vapor, and that there is no smell to that vapor. And then the medicinal side of it, you can see some gums, you can see some suckers, some candies. They've got waxes, they've got a little bit of everything. The state of Tennessee last year tried to put this to vote for medicinal marijuana, not legalization, medicinal marijuana, and it was actually named after a family that moved their daughter with seizures to Colorado for the medicinal benefit, and this is how she was getting it, not actually smoking it out there. So now in regards to Tennessee, we passed first consideration for medicinal marijuana on the 11th of March this year. The next day it passed the second consideration, then it was referred to the Judiciary Committee on the 18th, and that's where it's sitting right now. Well, a few days after they started talking about it, you guys probably saw this on the news, Tennessee went ahead and passed cannabis oil, strictly for minors that are dealing with seizures. This happened on the 13th, and this is actually what it looks like. It's just oil, cannabis oil. And if you look at all these other states that have legalized it or have medicinal marijuana, this is where it starts. So even though they said very strictly, the only people that can be prescribed this is minors with seizures on the 13th of March. What do you think happened on the 14th of March? And you got a lot of other doctors saying, hold on a minute, if we're gonna do this just for minors, we need to open this up. There's a lot of medicinal benefit to marijuana for a lot of other people. It can prolong life, it can help with seizures, it can help with glaucoma, it can help with a lot of things. So it's kind of in limbo right now. So even though they're passing this, we may be voting upon medicinal marijuana in November. This was actually supposed to be for Davidson County in Nashville. And then Haslam said, whoa, 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 if we're talking about we're not gonna start segregating counties, we're gonna open it statewide, and that's exactly what they did. So to my understanding, in the state of Tennessee, you've got to be a minor, you've got to have seizures to be given this cannabis oil. So marijuana is very unique. Still, the number one thing that we see positive on drug screens, and it probably will be for a lot. What do you think the second one is that I see positive? Alcohol? Nope. Opiates? Nope. Narcotics? A lot of that, opiates can be tied into this one too, even though we're going to talk about it. Prescription meds. Prescription meds these days, you can Google, diagnose yourself if you become addicted to one. I referenced hydrocodone earlier. Hydrocodone seems to be the uniform drug of prescription in dentist's office, emergency rooms, general physicians. It's kind of a catch-all. Backache, toothache, arm ache, whatever it may be. Hydrocodone this, hydrocodone that. But what a lot of people are doing with the hydrocodone, instead of taking it by mouth, they crush it up, they snort it. Get a little bit quicker in the body, I'm assuming so. But if you get a prescription drug today, on the 24th of June, more than likely it's going to expire 365 days later, as you guys know. Even if they give you a 10-day allotment, they're going to open that up. And as long as you're taking it as the reason it's prescribed, you're going to successfully pass that drug screen. Even though if you get hurt the same day that you're taking it, it's going to show up in your system. That MRO that we've talked about will call you and say, why do you have hydrocodone in your system? You can explain, this is the reason, I got it at my dentist, I got it at the emergency room, here's my doctor, here's my physician, here's my pharmacist. That MRO will do that legwork, and you're gonna successfully pass that test. KARM will never know about you having hydrocodone. It is that confidential, unless you are in a safety sensitive function. That's the way the drug-free workplace statute has been written. Make sense? So, when they give it to you, usually comes in a bag. Stapled to that bag is a piece of paper. I recommend you reading that piece of paper. It'll tell you, it may scare the heck out of you. It'll tell you every bit of side effects that possibly could be done to you. It'll tell you not to take with alcohol, take with food, take with no more than 3 a day, 1 every 8 hours. Those directions mean something to you. A lot of those directions will be wrapped around the side of that bottle, but try to read that piece of paper stapled to that bag. You may need a magnifying glass to do so. Okay? Disposal, we've got drops all over town now, whether that be at Walgreens, Walmart's, grocery stores, at the police station. If you've got some at the house that have expired and you want to get rid of, take them to those places versus flushing them down the commode. Okay? Very, very significant. What do you think the third thing is that I see? Does that surprise you? Erratic behavior. This is one that could make erratic behavior. One thing that we didn't talk about, reasonable cause, is the roller coaster behavior, which is, I guess, erratic behavior. But this could be a drug, from my understanding, that could make you reach a level of behavioral performance, and as that drug's starting to wear off of you, you start to come down, use it again, you go back up, come down, so it's a continual roller coaster behavior. Cocaine, white powdery substance, only stays in your system 48 to 72 hours. Crack, cocaine with a base and cooked up and smoked, supposed to give you extreme euphoria. It's actually derived from a cocoa plant that's grown in northern South America, also Africa, Taiwan, Southeast Asia. It kind of looks like a plant that some of you guys may have in your yards, but that's what the drug actually looks like. White, usually comes in a bag. Some people put them in corners of bags. Some people carry them in big balls, is what they call them. There's used to There's a thing called an 8-ball, right? That some of you guys may have heard of. But this is the way that they usually use it, straight through the nose. Some people shoot it up intravenously, but most people would use this, to show most people just use it through the nose. These are little straws. This is a creative vacuum cleaner that they call a snorter. And this is just a key that somebody would call a key toke or a key bump. It can be used very discreetly in a bathroom, in a closet, wherever people use it. They may use it in the hallway, for all I know, or in an alleyway. Crack cocaine, used, and they put a base on it, isotop, baking powder, baking soda. They cook it up. Some people cook it in a spoon. Some people cook it in baby jars. Some people cook it in ball jars. And they put this mixture in it, cocaine, the base, a little bit of water, put a flame underneath it, stir it up, and it forms into this rock form with a little bit more of a yellow tint to it, or a little bit of yellowing color to it. And then they would smoke it. It's supposed to get in the body a little bit quicker. It's a totally different buzz from my understanding as well. Fourth thing, I see positive. Does that surprise you there? Methamphetamines. Methamphetamines used to be bad in East Tennessee, now it's just bad everywhere. We talked about the task forces last year. You used to hear about meth lab busts all the time. You don't hear it so much anymore because the tax dollars aren't there to try to, I guess, remedy it. And I guess pseudoephedrine, key ingredient in the manufacturing of methamphetamines. Now in the state of Tennessee, they limit packages of sale to 2. Some states have made any medication that contains pseudoephedrine a prescription drug. Arizona was first. Now I think we've got about 10 states that have any medication containing pseudoephedrine a prescription drug. Some people use this every day, especially around here where we may live. That's what it looks like. You got most of the ingredients underneath at your house to manufacture it. If you so choose, you can Google meth recipes and they will tell you how to do it. They used to be made in larger labs, as you see over here to the right. Now they've got shake and bake methods where you can put these ingredients in a 2-liter bottle, shake it up, and it's going to look like one of those, what they call ice. Anybody watch Breaking Bad? Anybody ever heard of that show, Breaking Bad? They'll teach you how to do it on TV now. They got YouTube videos on teaching you how to make this stuff. Backs of cars, barns, ditches, anywhere you think it could be manufactured, it probably has been. This is just a picture. You can see where the gentleman was 23, 2 years later, what it may do to somebody. Very, very addictive. Usually if they are in a manufacturing environment, you don't even have to be a user. You could be in a manufacturing environment, per se, in one of these environments, and you could get addicted just by going through the skin from the vapors and things like that coming off of it. So, fifth thing I see positive, Mark said opiates. Heroin, morphine, codeine, Tylenol 3, some things like that. Stays in the body 2 to 4 days. You can see a track mark there in the arm. People are shooting up a little bit everywhere, underneath the arms and the groin area, and the feet, under the toenails, fingernails, so it's not so conspicuous by the eye. I was naive thinking that this was a drug of the past. I saw that special Old Drug, New Epidemic, where over the last 2 years, I can tell you that we've had 5 people die on construction job sites because of heroin. You know, I think that if somebody shows up here on meth, you may be able to recognize it. I think if somebody shows up here on heroin, you're probably going to be able to recognize it. If somebody's smoking crack, you may be able to recognize that. Marijuana, cocaine, you may not be so easy to recognize, okay? But this, people are still using it in the workplace. Morphine, you've seen them in hospitals and lock boxes. There is a street demand for that. Codeine, talked about that as well. Robitussin and DM back in the day. You could get it right off the shelves. It contained codeine. They pulled that off the shelf. Any cough medicine now that contains codeine, you will have a prescription for it. And if you test positive, you're going to test positive for opiates, and they'll call you. Why'd you test positive for opiates? And that's when you'd say, I've got a cough medicine that contains codeine. They'll try to trigger or help you understand why you may have done that. Tylenol 3, once again, a prescription drug that contains codeine as well. Sixth thing that we see, it's very rare, is PCP, LSD. That's what it looks like. This is what they call tripping or hallucinating. I think you would also be able to recognize an employee if they were under the influence of acid or LSD. It's basically a piece of paper, fodder paper soaked with acid, and they stick it on their tongue, chew it, eat it, swallow it. Some people spit it out. It's supposed to make you see anything your mind can imagine. 6, 8, 10, 12 hours. It's another family in our 10 panel. barbiturates, a depressant. One thing that we usually see is Seconal. If we ever see it, treated for anxiety, insomnia, and seizures. Also your Valiums and your Xanaxes ties into the benzodiazepine family. Also treated for anxiety, insomnia, and seizures. Also can be treated for alcohol withdrawals. Propoxyphene, methaqualone, methadone, oxycodone. Very rare that we see those two. We do see the oxycodone a little bit. You guys have probably heard of the Oxycontin or the Roxys, $1 per milligram per pill, street value. It's still out there as well. That's where you might see some, or you maybe see some shows on doctor shopping or pain clinics and things like that, where it was big in Florida, where you could come into a room like this and be treated and go through that door and there's a pharmacy and they'd give you, Oxycontin, give you a script of 30 of them, and they're $80 street value per pill. So you're walking out of there with a $2,400 in a pill bottle that you could sell on the street. So there was a demand for that. That's why you started seeing years ago people taking buses to and from Florida. So the least one, what do you think the least one that I see positive is? And maybe this alcohol. Does that surprise you? Doesn't sound like it. Why don't you think I see alcohol? Or why didn't you think we never see alcohol?
It's legal.
It's legal. Very good. That's one thing that surprises me too. Is odor of somebody. That's an easy, recognizable trait of you recognize. Whoa, did you smell him? I hate to keep referencing him. Did you smell that person? If you really show up and you're going to take somebody for a reasonable cause drug test in regards to alcohol, this is one they usually definitely don't go. Okay, so the results may be skewed why it is the least thing that I see positive. Because that's when it becomes a little bit more tricky in regards to management. Is hopefully you know this person a little bit, maybe got an idea of how they may react, but if somebody's under the influence or drunk on the job and you're going to try to take them for a test, they're probably not going to go. Then they're probably going to try to get out of here pretty quickly. And trying to talk to somebody that's under the influence of alcohol may be a little bit more difficult than being under the influence of a lot of these other drugs that we test for. So how are you going to deal with that? That's once again, game plan, communicate, talk to a team. How are we going to deal with this? If this happens, how are we going to do this? If you think this person could be very volatile, you may need to call the police prior to you talking to this employee, just in case, protecting everybody else after you have this conversation. Okay? Alcohol. The other reason why I think we may not see it is because it goes through the body quicker than any other drug that we test for. 1 drink per hour, whether that's 5 ounces of table wine, shot of liquor, or a 12-ounce beer, will get out of your body statistically in 1 hour. And the feedback that I get, the only time that we see a positive test is for somebody getting hurt in the morning. They get hurt, they got to go to the hospital, they're going to get tested prior to or post seeking medical treatment. If you get off work at 6 p.m. and you decide to go home and drink 18 beers 18 hours later, that will be out of your system. Dinner time, lunchtime the next day, 12 noon. And if that person shows up at work at 8 o'clock and they get hurt, they're probably still carrying some of that alcohol in their body. And this will show up in your analysis. Okay? If we got somebody who shows up drunk, we're probably going to send them for a urinalysis, probably with a breath alcohol test as well. That only some clinics can facilitate. Nova, for sure. They're a DOT facility or a DOT clinic. So you can see this. Also on average, 0.015 to 0.02. Sorry, Betsy, for that picture up there. I showed that last year. 0.015 to 0.02. Legal limit in the state of Tennessee is 0.08. It's unanimous in the 48 contiguous states. They're actually trying to move this 0.08 to a 0.05 as we speak for everybody. I remember when it was 0.12, then it was 0.10. Now we're living 0.08. Now they're trying to talk about bringing it to a 0.05. If somebody carries a Class A or Class B or a CDL driver, they're already held to a 0.04 because they're safety sensitive. So this is right out of the statute. I'm about to get you out of here. It's further the intent that General Assembly, that drug and alcohol abuse be discouraged, and employees who choose to engage in drug and alcohol abuse face the risk of unemployment and forfeiture of workers' compensation benefits. That summarizes everything that the drug-free workplace can do. Like I said, if somebody gets hurt on the job, they're going to get tested prior to or post seeking medical treatment. If they were to test positive, they got the possibility of losing those 3 things: their employment, their work comp benefit, as well as their unemployment benefit. Okay? You guys being supervisors or executive management, You guys have got a lot of things going on in regards to drug-free workplaces. The biggest thing is recognition. 2, communication. 3, documentation. Documentation is key, because if this person does feel like they have been harassed or threatened, they probably will go to the Department of Labor. They may try to call every regulatory agency possible to get back at KARM. And if we got that stuff documented, usually that minimizes their time if they do come and investigate. Show them it, talk to them, this is why we did it. You've got every right to do this in regards to reasonable cost testing. You've got every right to protect the safety of every employee here at KARM. And if somebody's trying to do something different in regards to drug-free workplace, you guys are kind of obligated to take care of that situation. That's why I say talk to your team. You guys know, I guess, the chain of command, get other people involved, kind of communicate, because I've seen some people really mess this up, where they use it for the wrong reason. You know, if they want to get rid of somebody, let's do this. That's not the purpose of this test. You know, I also seem to think that drug users are smart, and that employees will eliminate themselves prior to an employer eliminating that employee. So if you follow your company policy in regards to absenteeism, tardiness, productivity, all those things, that employee will probably go away before it even gets to this, if that makes sense. And that's usually what I see. Any questions? There's a lot of donuts back there for you guys to take to your employees. I expect a whole lot more people. So, you guys have a great day. Please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet. Thank you guys so much. Also, you do not need to come back tomorrow. If I'm sure Mark told you that. You guys are done today. Just your employees need to come, because it's going to be repetitious if you do. More welcome to, but not needed to. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.